cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So I had told you guys about me being in the law library in Pelican Bay SHU. I'd been endorsed while in the SHU. I had been endorsed to be transferred to Tehachapi in the California Department of Corrections. Tehachapi had an ugly alias throughout the system. Tehachapi. It had been a place where dudes that had, it was basically the only place where dudes that got hit or PC'd up or locked up, whatever, they could go there. And it was a 50-50 yard. It was the first 50-50 yard, I believe, in the state. And it wasn't called that. I mean, that was like where the phrase came from. But they would always send dudes from the SHU, from other joints that would send them over there. They'd wind up getting off. Most of them would wind up getting off, catching murders, catching attempteds, catching assault with deadly weapons, whatever they got charged with, right? But they would get off. The COs there in Tehachapi were killing Southerners left and right that were trying to move on people. And so it was looked at as a setup. You know, they would send people down there to set them up, either to shoot them or kill them, whatever, right? And so I had told the legend in the law library that I was going, and he was all excited, and I let him know I'll be right back. Meaning I'm gonna go get mine and come right back. So now I get kicked out to B facility, right? B yard in the Bay. One of my older homeboys from Santa Barbara is there. We had been cellies in New Folsom, right? We had both went to the SHU. We just got out of the SHU. He got out right before me. And I tell him, hey, yeah, they got me endorsed to Tehachapi. And he tells me, oh, for reals? He goes, hey, so does so-and-so. Now, my homeboy has been doing time since the 70s, right? Excuse me. And he's like, hey, well, homeboy right there, he goes, I know him since the 70s. And he goes, that was no joke. He goes, he's going too. He goes, you might want to sell up with him, eh? You know? So I was like, all right. So I get to meet him, and he's one of the original 12 members of what's known as El Monte Flores. One of the first, it's the first group that started that neighborhood. He was one of them. There were 6 dudes from his neighborhood there, and they were like, yeah, he not only is he is the neighborhood. He was born in a house in the neighborhood, and you know, he was very well respected. Like I said, he had been involved in a lot of very serious stuff. Allegedly, you know, hot ones behind the wall, a lot of stuff, man. And so when it came time that we knew we were gonna be leaving, I approached it. I knew everybody that was gonna be leaving on the bus with us. They're all my age except him. And I didn't feel they were as serious as I wanted to be at that time, right? So I approached the OG, and I was like, hey, you're going to Tehachapi, I'm going to Tehachapi. I said, look, all these other homies, like, I feel like they're just gonna go down there and, like, you know, just poke on somebody, you know, whatever. I said, I'm trying to catch a body, homes. And he said, so am I. And I said, why don't we sell up? He said, all right, no problem, let's do that. So we go down there, and it was a trip. We sell up in orientation, right? And we're there, and we're playing the dummy role. Like, the other dudes that came with us, you know, they got their clothes and immediately got them all Bonnaroo, you know, creased them up. And those of you that know, you know, you wet them, soap them up, and then use a soap dish as your iron, you know, and then let them drip dry. Don't wring none of the soap out, and it's like starch. So, you know, they hooked their stuff, and we're telling them, like, hey, Holmes, you're bringing attention to yourself. Me and my Sally, we left, however they gave us the clothes is how we wore them. We didn't want anybody to be worried, because them dudes would tell on you. They'll get you rolled up real quick, right? And we go to committee. The committee day, we go to committee. My celly goes in before me, boom, he comes out in cuffs. Orientation was in 4A, was on 7 block at the time. AdSeg was 8 block. My celly comes out, he's cuffed up, and he's like, they're trying to slam me, Holmes. I said, all right, ain't. So I'm like, damn. That's a big hit for me, because I really, in my mind, can't depend on these other dudes. I just felt that way about them, right? So I was like, all right, fuck it. So we're going on a solo mission. A couple other dudes go. And there was a dude that was there was actually 2 of them on the bus with us that came from Pelican Bay Shoe they had wrecked in the shoe, had got washed up. But see, they weren't a priority for us. There was bigger fish to fry out there. We're trying to get, me and my celly were trying to get out to the yard. We knew these dudes were right there if we needed to. They were not priorities. Priorities were out there in the yard. We're trying to get cleared for the yard, get out there, and then plan how we were going to do what we're going to do to them, right? So one of the dudes comes out, and he looks right at me, and he's like, all right. And I'm like, all right, Holmes. I go next. I'm in there, and everything seems normal, and then next thing you know, get against the wall, get him out of here. They said there was information that that was dropped, that if I went out to that yard, that I was gonna try to kill somebody, right? And I feel it was the dude that gave me that, hey, what's up? I think it was that dude. And so I go back to AdSeg. They throw me in the cell with the homie that I was selling with, the OG, right? While we're there, we had a lot of conversations. I can say without a doubt, I think he was the most racist homie I ever met. I didn't really encounter homies that were super racist in the CDC. In YA, yes. But I think in YA was more of kids playing a role. You don't know any better. You don't know. You just know everybody's fighting everybody. There's a lot of animosity. It was just gangbang central in YA. So I remember my celly, his family was originally from Texas. After Mexico, they were in Texas for a while. Then they migrated to California, right? And I remember him showing me a picture. He goes, hey, look, check this out. And it was a picture of his family, right? And he goes, hey, look all the way to the right. You see that? And I was like, who's that? And he goes, those are the slaves my family owned. And he's laughing about it, right? And I was like, damn, this family had slaves. Like, I didn't know Mexicans did that, And he's like, yeah, that's in Texas, this and that. And you guys that have been watching for a long time, you guys know I'm very proud of my culture, right? And believe it or not, you guys know I'm not with the N-word stuff. That for raza, anybody outside the Black Shoes Network, I think it just looks ridiculous, sounds ridiculous. Do you know that me and this OG had many debates where he said that my generation was, I'm going to use a kinder term than he used, was black lovers. And I was like, what the fuck you talking about? And he's like, yeah, Holmes, you guys listen to all that rap music and, this and that. And I said, man, Holmes, you told me you went to like a James Brown concert, like the Manhattans, So the difference is all the black groups that you like, because they sang, it's cool for your generation. But the black groups that rap, that made it black music, like, help me understand the difference. And he wouldn't like it, but we would go back and forth. And I told him, like, hey, to your dad and your uncles and your dad's friends and his generation, they probably say the same thing about you because you like James Brown, because you like the Moments, the Manhattans, Al Green. They probably say the same thing about you. So he was a cool homie, right? But there was always that comparison. You know, he had started doing time in the 70s. And he told me back then, he goes, hey, back in San Quentin, you know, back in Old Folsom, it was back in the days, he said, killing was what you were expected to do. He goes, you know, nowadays, somebody gets killed on the yard, people are like, damn, fool, they smoked him. He goes, back in the 70s, in the 80s, he said, you killed somebody, it was like, all right, he did what he was supposed to do. He said, they didn't even take you serious on the yard. They didn't even notice you till you had 4 or 5 bodies. Eh? He goes, then people might be like, okay, this vato might be serious. And it was always a competitive thing, right? We got along well, but there was always his generation versus mine. He made it very clear to me. And I don't like to use these terms, but he made it very clear to me. He goes, you know I'm not a Sureño, right? And I was like, what are you? And he was on Raza. He said, see, when I came into the system, there was no such thing as North or South. Eh? I came in the early 70s. He said, there was no such thing as that. He said, what do I look like joining something that started after I started doing time? He goes, nah, I run with the homies, but I'm not that. I'm underneath this thing. You guys know, the legends. He goes, I'm under them. So, you vatos are under them, so I run with you guys. And he told me the story of when they saw the first Sureño they saw the first Sureño land in San Quentin. And what happened. And he told me, he told me a lot of stuff, man. I learned a lot of history from that dude. Now, I want to let you guys know, while we were in that SAG, how do I put it? There's always people that were power hungry, right? But anybody intelligent, when you get to a yard like Tehachapi, when you get to an ad SAG, the whole, like Tehachapi, it's a junkyard. You're going to have to, just about everybody that comes in, unless they came off the bus and just got there, they're going to probably have to get hit. You're going to have to do a lot of investigating. It's just a lot of crap. So those of us that got there, and we were the very first bus to go. As soon as we got there, I whacked somebody right there in R&R. But anyways, it's just, anybody with common sense doesn't want to run a yard like that, an ad SAG like that. It's just too much bullshit. So we had all agreed. We only had one yard group. We were the first bus. Every week another bus would come from New Folsom, from Salinas Valley, High Desert, Pelican Bay. They were just rotating them, and these dudes were getting off. The dudes that were there that were no good, when they unloaded us off the bus, they filled it up with those guys and took them to Calipatria. And they were doing that every week. A bus would come, a bus would go full of those other dudes, right? And we had agreed. They had all of us just in one yard group, right? So we could all talk. And the way they had it was A section and C section mainly was where vatos that were active were going, but they had the PC sprinkled in. B section was mainly it was just like overflow that would send good dudes in there for a few days so they could move them to either A or C section, right? Well, we had come to an agreement. Everything was going to be by a majority rule vote, right? So when vatos would come, somebody, hey, Holmes, can I get that? And they would shoot their 114D lockup order. Why they were in that SAG, they would share it amongst all the homies. We'd go out to yard. They would have like up to 10 days before they're going to hit the yard. We go to yard. Everybody would vote. Hey, Holmes, look, this is what's up with these dudes. They've been out there too long. Anybody know them, this and that. Figure out what's going on. Okay, let's vote on this. And then they would vote. Everybody had a vote, an equal vote. What was going to happen to those dudes on their very first yard when they came out. Then, all of a sudden, this dummy, this dude was dumber than a bag of hair, right? Him and his celly. And they come out to the yard and they say, hey, we got the llaves now. We got the blessings. And I remember me and my Sally looked at each other like idiots. Like I said, there was always people that wanted power, but people with any sense don't want a junkyard. They don't want to pick up a place. They don't want to pick up the keys to something like that. You're going to get told on. You're going to get validated. It's not good for business, right? So these two dummies say they got it, and everybody's like, all right, cool, whatever. And it started doing weird stuff. And, you know, it just like, the rest of us were just like, man, these dudes ain't. And they kept doing dumb things. And so my Sally and I discussed it in the yard, in the cell, and we basically, you know, came to the conclusion or the agreement that we need to see the letter that gave them the blessing. So we went to yard and we're like, hey, look, we need to talk to you. What's the letter that you got giving you the blessings? We'd like to see that, you know, with all due respect, but just to make sure that, you know, whenever there's questions, when we all go back to the babe, because we want to be able to say, you know, we saw it with our own eyes and this is what was said and this and that. Oh, you guys are tripping, this and that. No, we're not tripping. We're just making sure everything's right, you know. So the next yard, they bring out the letter. Unless they had the most sophisticated code in the world, nothing in there said that spots you now. They were basically just acknowledging that they were there, right? So we told them, hey, this doesn't seem like what you're saying. You know, like, where in the letter is it saying what you're saying? And, you know, we ended yard on that note. We went back. We went back to the cell. Everybody went back to the cell. People know now there's some tension because my Sally and I basically questioned the authority in place, the so-called authority. The next time they released yard, we didn't know this was happening, but because so many Southerners have been whacking dudes on the yard and coming to the back, coming to Ad Say, coming to the hole, they decided to break it into two separate yards now. Everybody that lived in C section went to their own yard. Everybody that lived in A section went to their own yard, right? And so what had happened was we had decided everything is going to go back to majority rules, equal vote. Whatever them dudes, them were in A section, so they didn't come out to our yard. We were in C section. So my Sally and I called a junta, called a meeting after Rutina and discussed what had happened, the way things had been going, why we approached them the way we did and questioned their authority and needed clarification on their status as far as having authority there. And we put it to a vote. Whether they had to be smashed, they needed to get hit. And the majority agreed, yeah. There were some nays, there were some no's. There were some dudes that just felt like they didn't have enough to say yes to that, right? So we had a majority on our yard that said, hey, these dudes never had authority, made bad calls, they gotta go, right? Or at least they gotta get touched, they gotta get hit. Whether they go or not is not, that's for the legends to decide, but these dudes are gonna have to get whacked, right? So that was the conclusion we made. We're like, okay, now we have to figure out how the hell we're gonna get this, you know, the other yard to vote, because it has to be, with our understanding, it has to be with our agreement, it had to be a majority vote. Lo and behold, as Johnny would say, lo and behold, day or two later, my Sally gets validated. What a validation is in the California Department of Corrections is my Sally was identified by the state of California. My Sally was identified by the state of California as a member or an associate of one of the groups that are, the big four, one of the organizations. He has been identified by the state, validated by the state of California as being involved in organized crime. In the whole Tehachapi, once someone was validated, they put them on single cell, meaning they can't have a cellmate, and walk alone yard, meaning they can't be on the yard with anybody. They go on their own time, and the only one on the yard is going to be them. Guess where they moved me? Yep. They moved me to A section. So I tell my Sally, yeah, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to bring it up, this and that, all right. So I go, lone wolf. As soon as we go to yard, there's tension, a lot of it. From the two dudes, they don't know what to make of me, right? So I tell them, hey, we're going to have a junta. And they were like, and I'm thinking these dudes are going to move on me. Like, why wouldn't they? They know we have questioned their authority. We don't feel it's legit. And now I'm telling them I'm coming to their yard and they're the authority, and I'm telling them we need to get everybody over here right now. I'm basically not respecting what they're claiming, right? I get everybody in the junta, everybody in the meeting, and I lay it all out. The case against them. The fact that I believed, and I'm doing this in their face, that I believed they had an issue coming. I put it to a vote. And these dudes, knowing what was coming, had convinced people on that yard that they were the authority. And so when the vote was done on that yard, the majority was no. This was the thing. I knew that if there was enough yeses there, when I already know the count from C section's yard, when we got to the count in my mind that the majority was voting yes, they had an issue coming, I was going to have to whack both of these dudes by myself. I had something on me ready to go. I knew it was going to be a kamikaze mission, but we had agreed the majority rules. When the tally came up, when I already know, like I said, C section, I know what the tally was. A section, when they voted their no's, I think they only got me, my Sally, and my two neighbors. They were all down to ride with me. But I had to do this on my own, at least kick it off, right? If it goes that route. Everybody else said no. I had to respect the agreement that we had come to in C section, that the majority would rule. So I told them, what I learned, you got the majority, it's all good. You ain't got to worry about me. It is what it is, eh? Nothing came of it. Nothing but a little disappointment. And I'm going to tell you why. Mao Sally, the OG, see, when they would run committee, they would put us in the chow hall, and they put one dude on each table, right? And you're cuffed up and you're facing the wall until it's the next guy's, turn, and then you move down, boom, they bring another dude in. Next dude goes in, move down one, next dude comes in till you get all the way to the door to where you get to go to committee. And they said the OG came in and asked one of the homies, hey, what happened over there? Or really, how come nothing happened over there? And the homie tells him, nah, homeboy came out there and he pushed up on him and he put it all out there on the vote. And the majority ruled. And this fool said, I knew that Vato would be like that. This is just, I remembered this story. I was having a conversation with somebody and I remembered this story. And I said, you know what? I think this is another good glimpse at the way things go down, right? I was able to get at the OG verbally and let him know, hey, so what? So we have an agreement that the majority rules, but you want me to take it upon myself to say, fuck the majority? Go against the majority and go against these dudes that allegedly have authority. And he didn't have nothing to say. Like I said, we would have debates about the different generations. And it led me to believe, like, so this Vato was holding a grudge this whole time because I was a youngster that wouldn't bow down. I went by what we agreed to. I actually got them, the dudes that supposedly had authority, to agree that it would go to majority rules. Change their program up. But one individual felt, and this is no disrespect to him because he's a killer. He's still, I think he's still alive. He's still well, no, he's not in the shoe no more because they let everybody out. But I felt like, once you went on walk alone, single cell walk alone status, that kind of removes your vote because you can't participate in the reindeer games. You weren't going to be able to whack anybody in the cell or on the yard. And yet, as cool as you and I were because I didn't do what you wanted, now you're mad at me. That's how it is in there, man. It never became an issue. But that's a glimpse into personal politicking. I knew that from that day on, that dude would never like me, trust me. And I hadn't done anything wrong. I did everything I was supposed to do, the way we agreed to do it, and the way things were supposed to be done. That's how it is in there. So don't get it twisted with all this camaraderie stuff. At the end of the day, self-preservation is what it is to survive out here in prison. It's my story. I know it was a long one today. You guys asked for long ones. Maybe this wasn't the topic you wanted to hear for a long one, but hopefully it was, man. It was a very dysfunctional place and very dangerous, man. A lot of people were getting whacked left and right. And I guarantee you it's a place you wouldn't have wanted to be. Prison itself will always be that, a place you don't want to be. That's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out.